Ladies and gentlemen, to quote Kamala Harris a few weeks ago, we are so fucking back. I'm the Mr. Ryan. I'm Schmoes.
And I'm Cairo. And I'm a Schmo.
I've been saving that line for 3 weeks now, ever since Biden dropped out.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a doozy. Unfortunate timing. we're right ready to get caught up with the 3 weeks old news.
I'm ready. How was your 3 week break, Cairo?
Not too shabby. It's been busy, but been getting lots done. Went over to Gen Con for the first time last weekend, and it was a good time. I will say though, I don't know if I'm gonna go back.
Why not?
It is too big, frankly.
I feel that.
It just doesn't have the atmosphere that I want out of a convention experience when you're just literally shoulder to shoulder with tens of thousands of people all of the time. It's just not good. Like I went there only for the one day, and I had two things that I wanted to do. I wanted to play some Magic the Gathering in a particular event that they were hosting, and I wanted to go over to the artists' booths and just see what they had available. You know, if they had prints, if they had I like buying artists tokens that they make for Magic because I think that's just fun. And doing the Magic stuff was fine. That end of the hall was pretty. It kind of gets forced to spaced out because you have to have so much table space. But just trying to get to the artist's booth took me nearly half an hour of walking and trying to move my way through the crowds. And by the time that I got there, I went down one aisle, decided that this just isn't worth it because you can barely see the booths anyways because there's so many people around them, and I just left.
You went on a Sunday, didn't you?
So, yeah, which should have been like other than the Thursday, which is, it's a Thursday, but otherwise it should have been one of the lighter days, I would have thought.
Yeah, what the fuck? Well, I'm sorry you had to deal with all that. For any sharp-eared listeners.
It worked out good, though.
Mm-hmm. Did you at least win in MTG?
Kind of. I had a good time. I put together a pretty fun deck, and I got to do its thing the couple of games I played, so,
To all of our listeners at home, that means he lost.
I went 2-1.
2-1? Okay, that's better than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had a positive record.
To our eagle-eared viewers, I've been getting a new mic setup these last 3 weeks. We are on condensers now, my Schmoes.
Mm-hmm. I was actually thinking about that. I've been on a bit of a jazz kick lately. I'm entering my jazz era. So I'm listening to a lot of Billie Holiday and other 50s, 40s kind of jazz.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, they made so many microphones back there. I bet there's just piles of them somewhere just sitting disused because they're so old. And I bet it wouldn't be that hard to hook them back up again. It's XLR isn't that complicated. It's just 3 cables. Get
Correct.
Some old school microphones going again. Get that nice crackle and hum.
Well, okay, so I would also argue our sensibilities with a recording studio nowadays have definitely changed a lot as well.
For sure.
Yeah. By the way, Cairo, if you're in the mood for jazz, there's this new group, Mountain of the Bird. They have an album called Mountain of the Bird.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah. Orion did a fucking jazz album for anybody out there. Look up Mountain of the Bird on Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. We're very hot with the kids. Ha-cha-cha-cha jazz.
You like jazz.
I fucking love it. Thank you for asking. Let's see here. I have a jazz mix I keep. It's like just of my favorite jazz standards. Let's see what I've got. Do you like God Bless the Child? That's my favorite Billie Holiday song.
I'm still learning. Where the hell did it go? All right, I have so many tabs right now. I believe I have heard that one. I think currently Solitude is at the top of my list.
Okay.
But
okay.
I have a lot to listen through still. So I don't know for sure.
Fair. Now, are you doing mainly vocal jazz, or are you getting to the instrumental good shit too?
Oh, no. I've been listening to instrumental stuff. Particularly, there was Vince Guaraldi and Bolasset was one that came up that I've been listening to, and Scott Holgren.
Interesting. Okay.
Who the Holgren I hadn't heard about before, but they had a specific track that came up when I was just listening to stuff on YouTube, and it was like, dang, this is really good.
Fair.
I need to clean up my tabs because I can't find anything. I'm gonna just take all the Rotten Tomato stuff, and it just goes away. It's going away for now. It doesn't need to take up this much space.
I was gonna say you only need like 3 tabs.
I have a couple more than that. Ideally, that would be the case, but we don't live in a perfect world. That's better. I can actually read what the the tabs say at the top. But yeah, busy couple of weeks in the politics space. I don't remember exactly. Like when did Biden drop out?
Like a day after we did our show?
Yeah, on the. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong date. When did Biden? No, I don't care when he took off. Google, what the fuck is wrong? We'll get to Google later. Google is just full of shit. Yeah, on the 24th. So that would have been just after a couple of days. So yeah, that is definitely the big news. Is that Joseph R. Biden will not be running for president this November.
Thank you, Biden.
Yep.
I
can appreciate his perspective on it and how difficult this must have been. It's the kind of thing that feels very similar. I think that it is not commonly looked at this way, but is still the reality where politics is like a competitive sport, right?
Yeah.
If you go up to a professional, world-class track and field runner and ask them, can you take gold? They're going to say yes. Even if they don't have a chance, they're going to say yes because they're highly competitive, and that's just the mentality that they have to have going into it. If you don't think you have a chance of winning the whole thing going into the event, why are you there in the first place? So even though only one person's going to actually win, the whole field's going to be trying for that regardless and going into it with that mentality. And politics largely has the same perspective. If you're someone like Biden, who is the current president, who won the last election, it is not an unrealistic perspective for him to have, where he kind of has to have the opinion that my policy is the best policy for America, and I am going to advocate for my policy whenever and as much as I physically can.
Yeah.
And it definitely takes a large amount of, I don't know, not hubris. What's the opposite of hubris? Modesty, I guess, would be the word, to so publicly admit that either you or your policy are not what is best.
I think for me, a lot of it was Biden having to approach the idea of like a legacy, because it really was scary. Because you know it, we kind of live in the shadow of RGB's kind of dumbassery.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're Biden, you're in that same position, and you have a colleague who has, like, for all intents and purposes, if RGB would have just retired,
Yep.
one of the top 5 Americans of all time. So when you have that kind of thing, like,
I will say, though,
yeah,
it is very easy to say that. And I think history would have looked on her much more kindly, and it would have made the Republicans look a lot worse. But I think if you look back at what could have happened, in order to go back to the point where she could have retired and guaranteed that the Republicans wouldn't have still tried to fuck with it like they did anyways, you would have to go back to a point where there were extremely few people calling for her retirement.
fair.
So I will say largely I agree, but we don't live in a time where both political parties are acting in good faith, right?
Correct. No, you're absolutely right.
And yeah, it sucks.
Thanks, Menendez. But no,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, that's how I feel like the whole thing is
Yep.
approached in the larger scheme. Because at least he has a legacy now. Like, dude made it, like,
Mm-hmm.
a political sacrifice at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I really hope other people in his age group and in politics can start looking at themselves that way. Get the fuck out of office, Mitch.
Yeah. It is definitely, interesting times as always, that I think if you looked back historically, there would have been a lot more questions asked about how young is too young for someone to hold elected office. And to the point that, like the office of the president has a pretty high age requirement for someone to run for it. You have to be 35. It is interesting that we're now starting to approach that conversation from the other end too. And I think if you were to ask the majority of our generation, we would say that this is long overdue.
Yeah.
But it is definitely going to be interesting to see this start to happen.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. With Biden out of the way, though, who takes the reins? Why? It's Kamala Harris, of course. Because who else would it realistically be?
Fuck. No one.
There's not a ton of options. And from a tactics perspective, this is, without a doubt, the best way that they could have approached this. None of the other options for a Democratic nomination for president are, I don't even know how to put it. None of them are that exciting as a presidential prospect. And Harris has been doing great work over the last couple of weeks to make that prospect more exciting for normal people. And there's a chance that that could happen with other candidates as well. But it sure would be nice to see them try some of this shit a little bit earlier.
I will say, having a candidate who's 20 years younger is such a fucking breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's like almost double my age. And yet, I feel like she has infinite amount of energy that I'm used to seeing in politics at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she could just punch fucking Biden or Trump and they'll die. You know, they're so fragile.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had to deal with the fact that I just said Kamala Harris is about twice as old as me, and I just realized how old I am. Anyway, what are your thoughts, Mr. Kyril?
I don't know. I'm mixed on it generally. I think that they're doing the best that they can with the circumstances, and given the circumstances, they're knocking it out of the park. In exactly the same way, though, that the Trump campaigns were getting their points from Biden's fumbling, I do think that there's an argument to be made that Harris's campaign is gaining a lot of points from her opposition failing to show up. Trump has been incredibly light on public appearances these last couple of weeks. I think he's only made like 2 rallies in the last 2 or 3 weeks or something like that.
I think so.
And the rhetoric that's been going around online has been just overwhelmingly out of the favor of Trump and Vance, who we'll be getting to Vance later when we talk about the VPs, because that's a whole other thing. But there's just been so many opportunities for the Trump campaign to try and like do anything to appeal to moderate voters, and they haven't like fumbled the ball at every point. They've kicked it away from themselves completely unnecessarily. Like, well, let me see if I can find it. I'm trying to remember because it's been a long fucking week. Trump was at some journalists conference.
Oh, the African American one?
I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
National Association of Black Journalists conference.
That's it.
And for whatever fucking reason, Trump decides that his appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists conference is the time to start questioning whether Kamala Harris is actually black. That's the moment.
Bro was trying to sweep the black vote from her.
Yeah, and it massively failed. Like, this is the kind of event that has me wondering, like, do they have anybody? Is it literally just Don Jr. in the office cooking away, setting up these media appearances? Is that it? Just him in a giant bag of cocaine? Because that's kind of what it feels like. Like, okay, you should know this is a topic where your candidate is weak on, right? Like, the last time he tried to appeal to the non-white vote was by launching a fucking sneaker. And then you decide to follow that up by an appearance at the National Association of Black Journalists, people whose jobs it is are to dig into what politicians think and try and present that to their viewers and their listeners in as real of a way as possible. And then on top of that, you allow there to be a fucking Q&A? What are you doing?
I think they're just... okay, here's my opinion, right? If I was them, I think they were just trying so hard to give the media appearance everything it could ever want, so they couldn't say no to Donnie coming on. I see it as an act of desperation.
Pretty good quote. This is from Fred Sweets, contributing editor of the St. Louis American, former Associated Press photographer, speaking about the former president's interview at the conference, saying, quote, "He sunk his ship as far as I could see, but for his followers, he was a hero." That's accurate.
Yeah.
It seems like the entire political strategy of the Trump campaign right now is to just continue doubling down every opportunity they can with the people who they already have under their belts. And it seems impossible for that to be a legitimately viable voter strategy.
I agree. I think they're trying to keep what they have instead of, going for the kill.
Yeah. I will say, though, as much as I would like to say that keeping what they have should be the easy part, we've seen in recent weeks that that's not necessarily the case.
No, it's not.
Just this last week, good old boy Andrew fucking Tate has started to be accused of being transgender. Because he spoke out openly. Yeah. Oh, no, we'll be getting into this. So, actually, let's table that for a second. because there'll be more coming up to that as we talk about the Olympics, because the Olympics are fucking happening too. And there was a couple of particularly notable events that happened as it relates to trans individuals, or the lack thereof. But the other part that I wanted to mention about Andrew Tate is he put out on Twitter that apparently he's bitching about, for the first time in his life, people are calling him the N-word with a hard R in a derogatory way, apparently.
Is he black?
He's a black Muslim, yes.
I never knew that. Okay, I just thought he was an ass.
Well, also, yes. But yeah, so these people, like, you step one toe out of line and you're being gutted. And the other example that we saw of this was with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, hell
who took, like, one step out of line, saying that Trump wasn't pro-Second Amendment enough, as hardline right as you can get, and being that minutia off base from the Trump platform was enough for people to start calling him transgender and eviscerating him and kicking him out of the party effectively. So it may be even more tenuous than it seems on the surface, and it already seems pretty damn fragile.
Get fucked. You know, it's kind of fun to see, like, in a way, it parallels another American institute, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you spend all this time building up these personalities and all these characters, and then it's all falling apart. One by one.
Mm-hmm.
The conservative grift cinematic universe is falling apart.
It kind of seems like it. And we'll get the exact tally in about 3 months.
Damn, dude. Have you been watching the polls at all?
I've been trying not to. I know empirically that there are many polls that are of higher quality than others.
Yeah.
But the margins on them seem so wide lately that I haven't found much benefit in keeping an eye on them, and there are so many that are just bad that they're basically useless.
Yeah, there are some polls that are just out there to make people, like, just bring in, like, readers for advertisers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, like, it's been interesting watching the polls throughout these last 3 weeks as like they're kind of trying to figure out what the narrative should be.
Yeah, and the polls that I have seen have painted a very clear picture of where sentiment is lying.
Yeah.
I would actually be curious. See if I can find this real quick. Because I remember in the wake of Vance being announced as Trump's running mate on the ticket, it caused like a -8 on the like favorability of the ticket. Yeah, okay. So yeah, Vance for Trump, who was already at a low point, was -8 on the impact. And I believe in the history of vice presidential announcements for candidates who were locked in as the ticket for the presidency, that was the first negative instance ever.
Even after Sarah Palin?
I believe so.
Damn.
For Walz being picked by Kamala Harris to run, they found with a net favorability up 11 points. And it's been skewing wider and wider ever since still.
Good shit. Good shit. Wallace is a pretty neat guy, by the way.
He is, yeah. So let's talk about him real quick. Tim Walz, God, like, his CV is fucking stacked.
Yeah.
I highly recommend giving a read on his Wikipedia page sometime, because he has lived a full life. Currently, the governor of Minnesota, formerly a member of the House of Representatives, prior to that, and before that, a 24-year veteran of the National Guard.
Damn, dude.
During his time in the National Guard, he worked in part as a school teacher in Minnesota. And one of the best anecdotes that I've heard from his time as the school teacher was in part when he was working as their high school football coach, and apparently turned their high school football team from like bottom 3 to winning a state championship. And there's just like all these little things about his life that are like, you know, otherwise innocuous, but incredibly endearing for like the average person. Let you hear about them.
I will say, I didn't even know they made Americans like him anymore.
Yeah. It feels like a lost generation for sure.
Yeah. Like, this is what boomers think they were.
Yes, exactly like that. Dude owns no stocks, no bonds. The only thing that he and his wife will have to retire on at the end of this is the pensions that they will have from their teaching and his military service. It's like, again, bygone era. Who the fuck has a pension today?
Nobody.
During his time as a school teacher, he in part, let me see if they have it here actually. I don't. They do. In 1999, Walls agreed to be the faculty advisor of Mankato West High School's first gay-straight alliance.
God damn.
99.
99.
Yes. That is way the fuck back when.
That was before it was even legal.
Actually, I'm just going to read through his teaching thing because honestly, it speaks for itself. After graduating from Chadwin State College in 1989, Waltz accepted a one-year teaching position with World Teach in Foshan No. 1 High School in Guangdong, China. After returning, he took a job teaching and coaching in Alliance, Nebraska, and in 1993 was named Outstanding Young Nebraskan by the Nebraska Junior Chamber. While working as a teacher, he met his wife, Gwen, a fellow teacher, and in 1994, the two married. 2 years later, they moved to Mankato, Minnesota, Gwen's home state, where Walls worked as a geography teacher and football coach for the West High School. The team had lost 27 straight games when he had joined as coaching staff as the defensive coordinator. 3 years later, in 1999, the team won its first state championship.
This bitch
in 1999, Walls agreed to be the faculty advisor for Mankato West High School's first gay-straight alliance. From 1994 to 2003, he and his wife also ran Educational Travel Adventures, which organized summer educational trips to China for high school students. Walls earned a Master of Science in Educational Leadership from Minnesota State University, Mankato, in 2001, writing his master's thesis on Holocaust education. In March 2006, he took a leave of absence from teaching to focus on his congressional campaign.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah. Stacked. So yeah. The other big part of his life is his military service. Where did that tab go? Military service. There it is. Enlisted with the Army National Guard the day after he turned 17 with his father's encouragement. Served in the National Guard for 24 years following his enlistment in 1981. During his career, he had postings in multiple places within the United States and outside, including the Arctic Circle and Italy, including other locations. Trained in heavy artillery, as well as working in disaster response postings following floods and tornadoes, and multiple instances of being deployed overseas. In 2001, Waltz completed the 20 years of service needed for retirement from the Guard, but he re-enlisted following the September 11th, 2001 attacks. In August 2003, Waltz deployed with the Minnesota National Guard to Vicenza, Italy for 9 months to serve with the European Security Force as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. Waltz attained the rank of Commander Sergeant Major near the end of his service and was briefly the senior enlisted soldier of the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery Regiment. His decorations include the Army Commendation Medal and 2 Army Achievement Medals. In February 2005, Waltz submitted official documents to run for the U.S. House of Representatives. The next month, the National Guard announced a possible deployment to Iraq within the next 2 years. Waltz retired from military service in May 2005, later explaining that he wanted to focus on his campaign for Congress and did not want to violate the Hatch Act, which forbids some political activities by current federal government employees. And then we'll go on this real quick, because as of late, Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance has been trying to orchestrate a smear campaign against Waltz, claiming that his leave from the military was because he did not want to see active service and was timed specifically for that purpose. This is complete fabrication. So, a National Guard colleague, Joe Eustace, recalled that at the time Waltz retired, his unit's deployment was only a rumor and not yet confirmed. The Minnesota National Guard confirmed that Waltz retired 2 months before his unit was officially notified in July 2005 of its future deployment to Iraq. So, that is a pretty awful claim that's being floated out there by Vance, who is himself a fellow former veteran. And, yeah, it's completely false. It is not true, and it is entirely a smear campaign. It did, however, result to me learning about a new word, which is swiftboating, a pejorative American neologism used to describe an unfair or untrue political attack.
That's a lot better than I thought it would be.
Yeah. So, file that away with, like, gerrymandering and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be a Jeopardy question.
Mm-hmm. And in perfect timing, today, Vance was confronted about on Trump's avoidance of service during the Vietnam War. Vance's quote on the matter, quote, "I think Donald Trump didn't serve in the military, but he didn't lie about it. I've known Donald Trump for a long time. He really honors our veterans. He honors me for my service."
Okay.
The fact that he can say that with a straight face says all that I need to know about him as an individual.
I was about to say, isn't there
this being the individual who formally described Trump as America's Hitler?
Is he?
Trump?
No, I meant like Vance calling him an America's Hitler.
Yeah, he did that in 2018.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
He's got no balls.
No, none of them do.
Fuck you.
All these people line up and kiss the ring.
That's hilarious. This makes my day. It really makes my day.
Can I make your day one more time?
Yes, please.
The Trump campaign was hacked, and its documents have been sent to multiple publications.
I love that. Go on.
Mm-hmm. A high-level Trump campaign official fell for a phishing email, and the hackers sent their materials to Politico from an AOL email.
Dude, you're telling me he just got fucking hacked from a phishing email?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God, dude.
From what I understand so far, Politico has not yet released the majority of these details because they need to verify. They need to verify them, of course. And there's obviously a question of journalistic integrity if it's correct to release them. But the fact that it happened at all is very funny.
I will live with this.
Mm-hmm.
For now.
Yeah, this is a great response here. This is exactly how Russia hacked the DNC by sending John Podesta a phishing email. According to 2016's precedent, the most appropriate approach would be to publish all of the documents exactly as they are, so the Harris campaign can pick and choose which documents would be most damaging. But I highly doubt that the highly principled folks at WikiLeaks care about holding true to power, since the RNC was also hacked in 2016, and they refused to publish those documents.
What do you think they got from those old hacks?
So one of the important things that I saw come of it, because it's all very macro level so far, we have an idea of like what was received, but not what their contents are. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. But the big one that I heard is that they apparently have something like a 270-page document related to J.D. Vance as to possible weaknesses that he would have for the campaign. 270 pages.
Why did they pick him?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. The research... So, on July 22nd, Politico began receiving emails from an anonymous account. over the course of the past few weeks, the person who used an AOL email account and identified themselves only as Robert relayed what appeared to be internal communications from a senior Trump campaign official. A research dossier that the campaign had apparently done on Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, which dated February 23rd, was included in the documents. The documents are authentic, according to two people familiar with them, and granted anonymity to describe internal communications. One of the people described the dossier as a preliminary version of Vance's vetting file. The research dossier was a 271-page document based on publicly available information about Vance's past records and statements, with some, such as his past criticisms of Trump, identified in the document as potential vulnerabilities. Apparently, another finalist for the vice presidential seat, confirmed by these documents, was a similar dossier compiled on Marco Rubio.
That would have been funnier. That would have been so much funnier.
Yep. It is also very funny that both of their final options had last names with names that were not longer than Trump's.
I wonder if that was a real thing, like.
I think it is.
Because he wants his name
Trump,
biggest on the card.
Trump VP. See if I can find this. I heard something about it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it at this point. But there was legitimately something like that, and maybe it was a joke that was just really dumb and poorly told, but it was something to the effect of Trump didn't want to pick somebody who has a longer name than his because it would take up more space on their signs.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. And Donnie, there's an easy answer. Just go back to Drumpf.
Drumpf, dude. Get an extra letter in there.
Yeah. Problem solved.
That's a weak strategy, bro. You're not going to change your fucking name?
But yeah, Waltz has been great. Wanted to make note of his, I believe this was his first public speaking engagement after being selected as the VP. Is it VP elect, VP nominee?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. Where he had two real zingers that he gave in his speech. We'll go with the lighter one first. But he said, quote, "And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed." Which is a banger. More importantly than that, though, quote, "I can't wait to debate J.D. Vance. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up."
Damn.
Which, well done.
Balls in your court, JD.
Have you seen the clip from that?
Yeah, I think I sent that to somebody. I can't remember who.
I adore Harris's just absolute shit-eating grin the whole time that it's happening.
She knew it was coming.
She knew it was happening.
Yeah.
And she is trying so hard not to bust out laughing because it is amazing.
Are you excited as I am for those two to debate?
Yes. It is going to be a bloodbath.
It will really be like one of the worst debate. I don't know. Someone is going to have a miserable time. Either both of them are or one of them is. There's no good debate in any of this. And I'm okay with that.
I would be incredibly surprised to see Waltz do poorly in a debate setting. He is just the exact kind of individual who should succeed at that. His experience in the military is obviously a massive strong point, but comes with it, the training required to do that for 24 years, which is not at all nothing. And then to go on during that same time period and be a fucking high school teacher, apparently with a emphasis in social studies. You can't you couldn't cook this guy up in a lab, I don't think.
No, something would go wrong.
He's gonna by all logical and objective measurements, he should destroy Vance without any problem. And I'm very much looking forward to it.
Now, what about Kamala and Trump?
Oh, that'll also be so that's the thing though, right? Is that any possible debate between them, the supporters of Trump aren't going to support any debate that is, moderated at all, because of course they won't. And the supporters of Kamala aren't going to accept a debate that's basically a Trump rally like he wants, because of course they won't. Why would they? That's not a debate.
Correct.
So I won't be surprised if a debate doesn't actually happen. If Harris's campaign managers and herself are smart, they're not going to fall for the obvious ploy that is this completely awful Fox News, as big of fucking air quotes as I can, debate, because it's obviously a setup. And yeah, I don't know. We were talking before the show about apparently Trump has let slip that they're trying to host a debate in Grand Rapids too, and they're billing it as the third presidential debate, even though that there's only one that's actually been agreed to and Trump's backed out of it already.
I thought he said he was going back to NBC.
We'll see. I hope he does. That would be the best outcome, would be to just hold to the debate that they already agreed to. They already agreed to it. But they were talking about doing one on Fox, and that would have been just a massive shit show.
Oh, totally. So. Donald Trump, former President Trump, why is your hair so good smelling today? Kamala, could you give us a two-state solution real quick?
Yeah. Credit to her, though. There was a couple of instances this last week as she's gone much more aggressively campaigning. She had a stop in Michigan earlier this week, and there were, I don't want to call them demonstrators, is the right word. Demonstrators critical of her general lack of a position as it relates to the situation in Gaza. And her response to those demonstrators who were being disruptive was far from ideal.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But 2 days later, I believe this was when they were in Georgia. I'd have to look at the schedule again, and I'm not going to do that. But it was a couple of days later. Similar exact situation happened again, and she handled it far better, making it very clear what the platform for them is, which is a ceasefire and a two-state solution. And that was not the thing they were talking about at the time, so they did not go into any further details than that. But for the broad purposes of the people who are being critical, that is leagues better than anything else that has been promised so far. So the fact that they're able to go in such a short period and just fix what was obviously like a hole, a vulnerability in the campaign, is a great sign for them.
They do move a lot faster in this campaign. I think we're kind of poisoned, like you and I and our generation of voters, because our fucking voting career has been like since 2016. Mm-hmm. And it's every fucking presidential election has had Donald Trump in it that I've had, and I hate it. I don't know anything but that.
Yeah. It sucks.
It really does.
Who else sucks? RFK Jr.
RFK Jr. does suck.
So I'll be honest. Knowing absolutely nothing about him before, learning about his role in dumping a bear carcass in New York's Central Park was already enough to have me, without no questions, was never going to vote for him. Because that is just such a callous disregard for the respect of a dead thing. It's just cruel.
I agree.
Thankfully, though, he's also a massive proponent of the anti-vaccine movement. So that's a much more scientifically sound reason for disregarding basically any opinion that he might have. So let's go with that one, because it's pretty important. The New Yorker put out a great piece, was this on August 5th, just about a week ago, not quite yet, doing a massive profile on RFK Jr.'s life, his formative years, and his current positions today. And it paints a very clear picture of his current stances as it relates to the anti-vaccine movement, where he very obviously tries to present himself as, like most of these people do, someone just asking questions. And if they're shown evidence to the contrary to their opinions, they'll change their mind.
Yeah.
Except they never do. Ever.
The evidence is never good enough.
No.
Get better evidence.
Or there's some other reason why it's not the same. Yeah. John Oliver, this last week, also published a very good, extensive piece on Last Week Tonight, going over RFK Jr., who he is, his more abhorrent beliefs, with a particular focus on his role in the anti-vaccine movements. And I say role because in 2014, the anti-vaccine group, who was later renamed the Children's Health Defense, reported $13,000 in revenue for that year. Kennedy joined in 2015, and for the following year, in that year of 2015, the board's revenue shot up to $467,000. It is not an understatement to say that RFK Jr. directly and personally is responsible for a significant amount of the vaccine skepticism and misinformation that we are seeing in the United States and abroad, not just the US, today. And it is resulting in people dying.
Yeah.
He took a very strong anti-vaccine stance during COVID, which was not surprising and was a much more popular position as it related to the coronavirus, and that is what a lot of people know him for. But he extends that same belief to nearly all vaccines. His group was one of the more vocal opponents to vaccines that contained thimerosal, which is a mercury-containing compound that has not been proven to be any relation to vaccine risks or...
I think we lost him very briefly, ladies and gentlemen.
But they continue to beat that drum, regardless. What was that? Sorry?
Oh, no, your audio cut out slightly, but we get the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's bad and inexcusable. Really good point that was brought up during Oliver's piece talking about the anti-vaccine group is the idea amongst the anti-vaccine crowd that they would rather have their children be dead than autistic. And it is that kind of mentality that is very insidious and just kind of gross to see played out by somebody presenting themselves as a presidential candidate.
It never ceases to astonish me. And, you know, you were telling me a little bit more about the article itself, and I agree with you very wholly on a lot of the things you presented in it, especially with, like, how, you know, I feel bad for the guy because he lost two very important figures in his life very early.
Yeah.
And got onto all the drugs. But in the same way, I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is somehow a great metaphor for United States political stances in general. Like, after, like, you know, the assassination of Kennedy and whatnot, there's been a real death of innocence and a whole lot of drugs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not been just drugs. The New York article goes into it in much greater detail, but one of his former wives who committed suicide, he treated her horribly, to be in no uncertain terms. I don't think it is at all an exaggeration to say that his treatment of her, particularly as it related to his refusing to allow her access to their children, is in part what caused her to go into such a dark mental place. And he has just generally been an awful person when it comes to his personal relationships, with massive amounts of infidelity and no regard for the people around him unless it is to his benefit.
Sounds about right. So in that case, I would say he's probably the status quo.
Yeah. And would you know it, Trump has apparently offered him position of the head of the Department of Health and Human Services should he win.
I did hear about that. And I'm really convinced he's just there as like a psyop to filter out. Like originally he was there to filter out votes against Biden.
Yeah.
I'm almost
kind of
certain,
feels that way.
Yeah. But now that Kamala's in, it definitely feels like it's kind of backfiring on Donnie, because I've heard a lot of alt-right talking points and talking heads go over to RFK as like the more moderate solution.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay, Cairo. Let's say like this, right? DNC goes terribly wrong, and they nominate RFK. So you have to choose between RFK and Donnie. Who do you go with?
I would not be voting.
Fuck you.
I would not cast a vote for either of them.
I mean, at that point, yeah, it's lose-lose. Why not?
Yeah.
You know? Take that time in voting day and just get like a nice ticket to Canada. For no reason. One way.
I mean, to be clear, I would still vote for all of the other positions that are on the ballot because there's lots of other important elections that are happening. But I don't think I could, in good conscience, put my support behind either of those. You know, I would be writing somebody in, you know, in that hypothetical.
That's a good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. Radical third-party candidate Bernie Sanders with the steel chair.
I heard someone describe Tim Walz as like Bernie Sanders but younger. For like
he kind of is. He's not nearly as extreme in his beliefs, especially as it relates to more like foundational ones. He's still very much a Democrat at his core, where Bernie is not. But it's an apt comparison regardless. All right. So, in other news, they've been doing an Olympics.
Oh, yeah. I love the Olympics.
Pulling up the medal count right now. Ooh, this is an interesting spot. Actually, are they still going on? I don't know. When is the last event? Checking. Oh, what the hell? Well, I don't care enough to look more than that. Currently, I think this is the first time this might have happened in a while. The United States is tied for first place for gold medals.
Are we?
With China. We have the exact same number of golds as China with 40, but the United States has overwhelmingly more silvers and bronzes.
I was about to say, last
they're,
night...
They're ranked higher still.
I thought we were losing to China last night.
We might have been. But there's been quite a few events that have happened over the last couple of days. Notably, men's basketball. Let me make sure I get this right. U.S. men's basketball. Because they beat the shit out of France thanks to career performance from, I want to say, was it Steph Curry?
I'm just saying, did anybody expect us to lose basketball?
It was close at some point.
Oh.
Going into, I want to say it was the last 3 minutes or 5 minutes, the U.S. was tied with France. Then Curry came in and hit 3 consecutive three-point shots in the last 2 minutes of the game.
That's just disrespectful.
Yeah. Included in that is what is being called one of the best shots ever made, possibly. Where, and it's like the dude was just completely locked in. He was not missing that night. But he has two of France's people defending him in front of him. He has like three of his teammates open for a pass to get a better angle for a shot, and he just disregards that, does like a little juke move to give himself some space, and throws this shot that goes up so high that apparently in the official broadcast it went off the screen and just smashes a 3-point from it.
Hell yeah.
And I was learning and seeing the discussion from that apparently he is known for those kinds of extremely high arcing shots, to the point that some people have called him the sky fucker, which is amazing. But took a 98-87 victory over France for their 5th consecutive gold medal.
Bad ass.
Yeah.
I love a happy ending.
Absolutely crushed it.
Yeah. I'm feeling mighty patriotic all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm. In non-U.S. Olympic news, though, there's been some controversy over an Algerian boxer, Iman Khalif.
Okay.
So we'll go over this real quick. Algerian boxer Khalif was fighting against Italy's boxer in the welterweight women's division, and Italy's boxer ended the match very quickly and conceded from the match after what she described as being hit the hardest she ever has, which has sparked a transgender witch hunt on the internet, based on literally nothing else. There was an IBA, the International Boxing Association, decision in 2023 who disqualified Khalif from the competition that year, claiming that she had failed some sort of gender test that they performed. They went on to refuse to release the details of that test, and they are still, to this day, not public. I have seen exactly a single source who claims to have seen them, who seems to be a credible journalist, but even they have not gone beyond saying that they have seen them and concurred with the decision that was made at the time. It is notable, though, that the Olympic Athletics Group, the IOC, has such little faith in the International Boxing Association that they have effectively disqualified them from participating in international sports as a whole, citing connections that the IBA has to Russia and possible unfair treatment resulting from that. Bribery, corruption, the usual stuff when it comes to Russians and participating in international sports. Going from there, though, Khalif won her gold medal earlier this week. So good for her. And she's apparently going to be filing complaints over the rampant abuse that she received from the false allegations against her. And if we're really lucky, maybe she'll even file a lawsuit or two against some real pieces of shit like J.K. Rowling.
You know, I'd say that
remains to be seen.
She should get in the ring with them. Like, prove it. You know, fucking, you want to call me out. Yeah, get in the ring, motherfucker.
I will add, though, did you hear, by chance, the Rowling specific news with her role in that?
No, I did not. I know about the fucking mold lately, but...
Well, so yes, the mold was part of it, where just the renewed attention had people putting her under extra scrutiny, and people were finding that it appeared like she had mold in the background on her walls of one of her profile pictures. And then in another one, apparently she had a dildo just sitting on the counter behind her when she took the picture.
I did see that as well.
Yeah. It's just like, what's going on here? I would like to know why this is where we've gotten to.
She doesn't know how to use fucking blur in the background, duh.
Well, no, now she does. Because she re-uploaded the same profile picture with the background entirely blurred. Yeah.
Poor lady.
Fun stuff. But this has been one part of a much larger trend among, I'm tempted to say particularly among, but it has been almost exclusively among members of the right-leaning political parties of the world, where they have started this just general transgender witch hunt amongst literally fucking everybody. We talked earlier about how they started against Kyle fucking Rittenhouse. They had an Algerian boxer who doesn't meet what they would describe as the definition of a woman for a white Western woman, because she has different facial features and some slight facial hair. So they started a witch hunt there based on basically nothing. And they're doing the same thing for Andrew Tate. There's a picture going around of him from like 2019 or something, of him in like a Speedo, and people are pointing to his lack of any substantial bulge as evidence that he actually must not have any male genitals and is actually a woman.
We forgot what fucking steroids do?
Yeah, that's where we're at right now. Is that it's like that ideology has become that fractured that they're just devouring themselves alive at this point.
Do you remember like The Little Mermaid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, like the little sea urchin creatures that Ursula turns people into when she like steals your soul or whatever?
Yep.
That's what I imagine Andrew Tate's dick looks like. Same with like the little sad beating eyes, like just put me out of my misery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
End it now. Last piece of news before we get into some of there's actually not been that many movies released, but Elon Musk and Twitter are still in apparently a very precipitous situation.
Lovely word.
So it's very funny because we had this starting back in 2023. Actually, if you want to go further back, the New Zealand Christchurch mosque shooting really kickstarted a lot of this, where the shooter of that mass shooting live streamed his perspective of it in a horrible display. And the result of that was many major advertisers having their advertisements placed next to that stream. And that was not a good look for anybody involved with it. And it sparked massive amounts of increased scrutiny as to how social media companies decide what ads get put next to what posts. Part of that has been the creation of a number of nonprofit organizations that work basically as a middleman between advertisers and the platforms that they want to advertise on to determine how viable those platforms are for the advertisers and whether it's safe for those brands to use them at all. In 2023, Elon Musk issued his first of many lawsuits against the group Media Matters for their publication detailing how they found many major advertisers' advertisements placed next to questionable material, including pedophilia, anti-Semitism, and just generally, pick your topic, right? Not only are those existing on the platform at all, but advertisements are being put next to them of major brands. That sparked massive numbers of advertisers to back out of Twitter entirely, and the vast majority of them have not returned, to the point of Elon Musk, where was the exact quote? I think he just told them to fuck off.
Yeah,
something
or
like
this
that.
Is war. Yeah.
Not exactly ingratiating himself with those advertisers, to say the least, though. This has continued into now of August of this year, where Elon Musk has filed a lawsuit claiming that the groups of advertisers refusing to advertise on his platform is now somehow violating antitrust laws.
Oof.
Let me see if I can put it up real quick. There was a great piece on the law subreddit from a professor. See if I can find it real quick. Who gave an analysis of the lawsuit as it was filed and described it as a very weak case. So, not good for him, but because we live in America in a time where money dictates all, sometimes the result of the lawsuit doesn't matter. And in this case, it seems that may be the case, because the entity, the organization that Musk sued, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, known as GARM, has announced that following the lawsuit and the expenses that have come as a result of it, they will no longer be able to function as the body that they did previously. They will be fighting the lawsuit, but in doing so, it is requiring the entirety of their finances because they are not for profit. They do not have these large coffers to fight these kinds of legal actions. To quote their statement, GOOOOOOO is a small non-for-profit initiative, and recent allegations that unfortunately misconstrue its purposes and activities have caused a distraction and significantly drained its resources and finances. WFA, the World Federation of Advertisers, therefore, is making the difficult decision to discontinue GARM activities.
Thanks, Elon. Now they can't advertise.
Yeah. And that's going to be the end of this, is that his case is bogus from the start. It's based in nonsense, and any reasonable judge should be able to see through that, though thankfully he picked a judge that is not at all reasonable because, again, we live in America and our legal systems are a fucking joke. But hopefully this will be fought up to a point where somebody will be just like, yeah, no, that's not what this law does. You can't just pick and choose the law as you like. But until then, it's not great. Though it is good to have a bit of a reminder of how much the advertisers pulling out has gotten under Elon's skin, that he would go to such a drastic measure as a response. Clearly, it must be working.
So after he sets the precedent with this lawsuit, right? Is he just going to be like, my ex-wife and her mother are a trust that I want to use antitrust laws to make sure they can let me see my fucking kids?
I wouldn't surprise me if they tried it.
I don't get this guy. I don't get it. Like, it seems like he just doesn't know how to spend his money. Because, like, all he does is just do, like, the most boring-ass shit you could do with money. Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
This dude could buy, like, a small country, or at least, like, you know, help a country so much he becomes, like, a popular celebrity and, like, an influencer there. And, like, actually get people to like him genuinely and do, like, some rabid-ass shit. But no, he just sits on fucking Twitter all day, making the algorithm appeal more to divorced dads like him. Like, fuck off.
And it's because doing good things doesn't make him more money.
Yeah, but you don't need money anymore. You won. Your daddy won that diamond mine.
But the thing is, though, is that from his perspective, his life is so miserable and money is literally all that he knows, that the only thing that he can think of is that getting more money is the only thing that will make his life not suck as much.
Good point. You think there's just something he's, like, super cheap about just for the sake of, like, trying to save money?
Maybe. I know he puts on airs a lot about his, you know, frugality.
Yeah.
You know, oh, he lives in a tiny house and he's driven the same car for whatever, but he clearly needs a $45 billion pay package for a company that's failing to meet its quotas.
Mm-hmm.
Was a really good clip that was going around, making the rounds this last week of Cybertruck ruggedness testing, where somebody was trying to use a Cybertruck to unstick another truck that was like wedged between something, and it unwedged the truck, but it came at the cost of the bumper and part of the car's subframe being ripped off in the process.
Dude, why did he leave that on like Twitter?
Yeah. It is definitely a good question to ask. Would you like to talk about movies?
You know, nothing would make me happier to know that fucking movies are doing worse than politics at the moment.
It's a weird time.
It's a good time.
We'll get into this with the last one, because there's a particular release, like, obviously everybody knows about already, but I've found its impact to be very fascinating. So let's run through it, though. Releases that we've missed. Does it have a date? Of course it doesn't have a date. Why would it need a date? August 2nd, so last weekend, we had Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan latest flick. Oh god, what a horrible description. Is there literally nothing more than that? A father and teen daughter attend a pop concert where they realize they're at the center of a dark and sinister event. Okay, so that's a terrible synopsis, because this is actually a much more interesting idea, and it's unfortunate that it's doing quite bad. It's at 54 critics, 64 audiences, so generally very middling. The actual basis for this is the idea of a father and teen daughter attending a pop concert, but as the movie unfolds, it's revealed that the father is actually a mass serial killer. The police know he's there and are trying to find him at the concert, and it follows his perspective as he tries to avoid the police.
That's stupid.
It's very dumb, yes. But I wish it was good, because I would watch the shit out of that. It is unfortunately not good, though. It is a very Shyamalan idea, though, you have to admit.
It kinda is. I don't know. I feel like his ideas used to be much more tighter, you know?
For sure.
What else we got?
GOOOOOOOO released this weekend. This is a English language. That's weird. I assume horror thriller. 17-year-old Gretchen leaves her American home to live with her father, who has just moved into a resort in the German Alps with his new family. Arriving at their future residence, they are greeted by Mr. Koenig, her father's boss, who takes an inexplicable interest in Gretchen's mute half-sister Alma. Something doesn't seem right in this tranquil vacation paradise. Gretchen is plagued by strange noises and bloody visions until she discovers a shocking secret that also concerns her own family. 78% critics, 62 from audiences. This one's mostly here because there's not a whole lot.
Fair.
But it seems like it's doing fine. For horror, at least.
I'll live with this.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since we're in pre-spoopy season.
Yes. More of it will be coming soon, for sure. Next on the docket, It Ends With Us, releasing this weekend. It is apparently a adaptation of the Colleen Hoover novel by the same name. This is a bit of an interesting one. 59% critics, 94% audiences.
Ooh. Why?
I'm skimming through. Most of the reviews are generally positive, from critics at least. Especially as an adaptation of Hoover's novel. It apparently succeeds in that regard, at least. But in a more general sense as a film, it's apparently pretty rough. Mediocre in a lot of regards that service to present the adaptation rather than trying to stand on its own as a film.
Okay.
And the audience reviews are overwhelmingly positive because many of them are fans of the book and went to go see it because of that, which isn't too surprising.
Biased. Mm-hmm. Biased critics.
Now, this next one I have here is one that I normally wouldn't cover because it has very few reviews, but I find the idea of it very fascinating. So this is called War Game. Where is it even showing? I don't even think to check that. They don't even have details for where you can actually watch it. But this released last week, limited release in theaters. War Game is an elaborate future-set simulation that escalates the threat posed by the January 6th, 2021 insurrection. The film follows a bipartisan group of U.S. defense, intelligence, and elected policymakers spanning 5 presidential administrations as they participate in an unscripted role-play exercise. Portraying a fictional president of the United States and his advisors, they confront a political coup backed by rogue members of the U.S. military in the wake of a contested 2024 presidential election. Like actors in a thriller with more real-world stakes, the players have only 6 hours to save democracy. Not many reviews for this, 34 critic reviews, fewer than 50 audience reviews, largely, I would imagine, in part due to its very tight release, limited release. Mm-hmm. But the vast majority of them are very positive. War Games engagingly imagines a single, specific, very believable threat, and if not everything in its stress test goes smoothly, neither is it a complete disaster. And I do think that that's a very interesting aspect of this, is that it is using real defense, members, intelligence operatives, to construct a, kind of documentary, from a documentarian style, at least. Yeah. And it's very unique, to say the least, to have this done in, film format for a piece of entertainment. All right. Now we get into the last two here. Let's get this out of the way. Let's talk about Borderlands. This one released this week, wide release in theaters. This is literally just the first Borderlands game, isn't it?
Not exactly. It's like a retelling / reimagining. Yeah.
Lilith, an infamous bounty hunter with a mysterious path, reluctantly returns to her home Pandora. Sorry, I'm just going to read this in entirety because this is not well written, like the movie. Lilith, an infamous bounty hunter with a mysterious past, reluctantly returns to her home, Pandora, the most chaotic planet in the galaxy. Her mission is to find the missing daughter of Atlas, the universe's most powerful SOB. Oh. Okay, so they didn't need that comma there. Okay. Lilith forms an unexpected alliance with a ragtag team of misfits. Roland, a seasoned mercenary on a mission. Tiny Tina, a feral preteen demolitionist. Krieg, Tina's muscle-bound protector. Tanis, the oddball scientist who's seen it all. And Claptrap, a wise-ass robot. Together, these unlikely heroes must battle an alien species and dangerous bandits to uncover one of Pandora's most explosive secrets. The fate of the universe could be in their hands, but they'll be fighting for something more. Each other. Based on one of the best-selling video game franchises of all time, welcome to Borderlands.
Dude, Avi Arad worked on this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it had a ton of major names involved.
What the fuck?
I will say, because which I have to actually, yes. So, my hot take on Borderlands, right? My favorite of the actual games is the pre-sequel.
Okay.
And I know it's widely people just don't like it.
Yeah.
Because it's so different from the actual Borderlands games. But just in terms of how much I enjoyed spending my time with it, I found it to be way better than, just for me at least, the main lane games. And it's not to say that it's bad. It's just in terms of a ranking, right? Because Borderlands and Borderlands 2 are probably up there in you could pick one or the other for a nomination on your best games of all time kind of list in terms of their influence. But it makes me very happy to know that there's now something worse to point at as the worst elements of the Borderlands series. So it's at least it's not the Borderlands movie.
Dude, I'm reading the plot. The plot reads like a fucking nightmare.
I don't get why they didn't just adapt the game more directly.
Yeah, because they're doing this weird thing where it's Borderlands 1, 2, and I assume 3? I haven't played 3.
You know something amazing?
What?
In the time since I opened the link at the start of the episode, and now, the tomato meter has updated and it's dropped down to 9%.
Good.
It went down in real time. I'm gonna pull this up because I genuinely don't I'm trying to figure out what did they do different,
Well, one, they took some of the best characters out. Like Borderlands is supposed to be like Mad Max on crack.
Yeah. Just the fact that they refuse to let it be rated R is the most obvious problem.
Yeah.
Curious, director Eli Roth. What have you done, Eli? Extremely little.
Dude, I
I'm trying to find. Do I even know any of these? Like, I get that, if you're a director, you gotta start somewhere, right? But I feel like this has been a trend lately when they've been putting these directors who have had, a not insubstantial, prior experience, but in, like, the guy, okay, his last directed movie was 2023's Thanksgiving, an American slasher flick. And you know what's going to be really funny? There's a chance Thanksgiving makes more money than Borderlands.
Good.
Such a disappointment.
This should have been like, because the casting, I don't think it's bad casting. These are all fine. Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, but this should have been like a road trip movie where they come up against like all the wacky shit that is in Borderlands. You know?
Yeah.
It feels like this is just some MCU water dribble down bullshit. You know? I don't know.
I absolutely agree.
Because, like, okay, for all the normies in the room, Borderlands is supposed to be, like, a treasure hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And this reads not like a treasure hunt.
I'm curious what they have for the, like, plot synopsis for the first game.
Because, like, the whole, like, gameplay loop of Borderlands is, like, go to weird place, meet weird characters. They're very funny. Or, like, kind of fucked up in a funny way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You shoot shit. You walk out. Repeat. As needed.
Yeah, and so just refreshing myself on the plot, I don't know why they didn't just do this 1-to-1.
Yeah, isn't it easy to do?
It's so easy. And then you just get, like, it's a bit, by modern standards, because it's 15 years old, it's a bit generic, right? But that's fine. That's kind of even the point where you want it to be a bit of a generic plot so that you can let the absurd elements stand out more in contrast to how normal the actual beat-to-beat events are.
Yeah. Like, it's not a terribly difficult plot. It's, like, very straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Also, I will say, I love Jack Black. He's amazing. He shouldn't have voiced Claptrap.
No, he's a terrible voice for Claptrap. Why couldn't they
like,
get the
why
original?
don't you?
Yeah.
Right. I'm actually I'm gonna look that up real quick because, like, yeah, why didn't you just get the original?
Because, like, part of the joke of Claptrap is his voice is a little bit annoying. You kind of wanted him to die.
Yeah, it's incredibly grating.
Yeah.
Dave Eddings.
Did you do
okay, so apparently, Claptrap was voiced by Dave Eddings in the first 4 Borderlands games, but was replaced by Jim Ferranda since Borderlands 2 VR following a public falling out between Eddings and Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford.
Ooh, Randy. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. This is great. On the r/Borderlands subreddit, there's a post that is just, is there an actual reason why Jack Black voices Claptrap other than him being famous?
Nope.
No, yeah. And people do mention that it's because the actual original voice of Claptrap is refusing to work with the franchise anymore, which, power to him. That's a hell of a move.
Really, it is. Like, dude
Eddings
makes
claimed
sense.
that he was offered substandard rates for voicing the character in Borderlands 3 and accused Pitchford of assault. Holy shit, that's pretty serious. God, Randy Pitchford is such a piece of shit.
Is he still around at Gearbox?
Oh yeah, he's still the CEO.
What the
I
fuck?
think. President and CEO of Gearbox. Yep. Yep. Maybe it's not surprising, given that, Randy Pitchford is Randy Pitchford, that they didn't stick with the original plot. That they decided to do something more, I don't know, complicated and less focus on the weird, discrepancies amongst the bounty hunters and everything else that's going on. But anyways, that's why it gets a 9% critics review.
I just want to know, like, what the CGI kind of looks in it, because, like, Borderlands has some creative designs.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue, one of the most distinctive art styles that we've ever gotten out of video games since, like, pixel art.
Yeah, it's like this weird pseudo comic book art.
Yeah, it's fantastic and is a great use of the hardware they had at the time to make things look better than they actually did.
Yeah.
Some critic reviews. 0.5 out of 5. Borderlands is what happens when you order Guardians of the Galaxy off Temu.
Yo, that's it too. They legitimately turned Borderlands into Guardians of the Galaxy. Fuck them. Fuck Randy Pitchford.
1 out of 5. There are some sins that are simply unforgivable, and wasting Cate Blanchett is one of them.
Seriously, like, dude, what the fuck?
A loud, bloated, unequivocally vacuous work of drivel. Here's hoping everyone, including myself, moves on and forgets about this disaster of capitalist greed and good time. 1 out of 5.
I can't wait till it comes to streaming just so I can watch it. I'm not paying money for it.
This is an interesting one. 2.5 out of 5. Visually, the film does a commendable job replicating the cel-shaded look of the games, but this stylistic achievement only serves to highlight the film's overall emptiness.
Damn. They said someone cared, but not enough.
1.5 out of 4. Borderlands is perfect viewing for people who thought the Venom pictures were too artsy-fartsy.
I kind of like the Venom pictures.
Yeah, but when you call them artsy...
No, because, like, they're schlock. They are...
Yeah. Oh, they're peak schlock. That's why they made more of them, because people like that.
Like, the Venom movies are a drinking song with your buddies. They're not fucking Beethoven.
Yeah. So let's get to the actual, release of the month, I think it's safe to say at this point.
Oh, heavens.
Deadpool and Wolverine. It's doing very good.
I'm going to see that soon.
Yeah, I'm hoping to as well. I very much enjoyed the trailers that we've seen for it and the ideas they're playing around with. And what little I have heard of it has been overwhelmingly positive from a fan perspective, even if there is some, critical aspects of it that could have been, better. But it's also a Deadpool movie, so, who really cares?
Yeah.
One of the few anecdotes that I've heard from it is that there's apparently a line in it about how Kevin Feige said that they weren't allowed to have cocaine. And that was not in the movie. That was they were talking about scripting and stuff. And apparently Kevin Feige literally was like, that's fine, but we can't have hard drugs. And he specifically mentioned cocaine. So they took that and they wrote it in as a joke about how Kevin Feige wouldn't let them have cocaine, which is just perfect. It's exactly what I want from this.
It does feel like Ryan Reynolds running around with the budget he always wanted for a Deadpool movie.
I am curious. What is the budget? I don't actually know. I assume it's typical Marvel budgets, but I'm not sure. 200 million. So typical Marvel fare. Makes sense. I would have been very amused if they somehow made this for less than the Borderlands movie.
There's no way that was happening.
No, Borderlands was still like 110 million, which is, you look at their cast and you can see the kind of money they're willing to throw around, so you get it. But yeah, they obviously are making that back.
It's so frustrating because it could have worked.
Yeah.
God damn, 8.8 million.
Mm-hmm. And his schlocky Thanksgiving slasher flick made 45 million on a $12 million budget. That's something that I would wonder. I would love to see more big studios give smaller directors, actors, take your pick, give them a chance to work for your big studio, but still put them under the same, financial expectations that they're used to working with, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're used to making $8 million films and then all of a sudden somebody hands you $120 million, you're probably not going to know how to spend it right.
Look at Elon.
It's a huge jump. Yeah. Wow. Apparently, Deadpool and Wolverine, after it has now grossed $1 billion, is now only the second R-rated movie to gross more than $1 billion.
What was the first?
I don't know. But I'm curious to find out. Let me skim through this and see if anything stands out. Because, the $1 billion list isn't that long still. It's like 50 movies. Oh, Joker. Okay. There.
Okay.
That would do it.
Yep.
I'm surprised that made $1 billion. Interesting.
Incels, dude.
I guess. I do hope that there was a large number of incels that went to go see the edgy Joker movie and were disappointed that it was just like a regular movie.
Yeah, I think everybody overestimated that fucking film. It's good.
I don't think I would say it was overestimated, but I can appreciate that perspective.
Yeah. So
I was going to say, one of the things that Box Office Mojo does is they break down the gross by country that was earned in. I would think you could make a very fun movie index based on the success of the movie, based on how it grossed in a selection of small countries.
I like that. That's smart.
It'd be a lot of work, but I think that'd be very fun to see. Oh, of course he did. Ryan Reynolds started his own production company called Maximum Effort.
Of course he did.
Film production and digital marketing. Actually, though, that kind of makes sense. Because if you didn't have something owned by Ryan Reynolds helming their digital marketing, it wouldn't be nearly as good.
He is a whiz at marketing. I'll give him that. I don't think he's always the funniest, but the dude is interesting.
Yeah. They know how to make you watch their ads.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine. We should talk about the movie. Deadpool's peaceful existence comes crashing down when the Time Variance Authority recruits him to help safeguard the multiverse. He soon unites with his would-be pal Wolverine to complete the mission and save his world from an existential threat.
Oh boy.
It is fascinating having this movie put side by side with Borderlands. Because, yeah, that is an incredibly dull, by-the-books kind of plot.
Yeah.
Where you have hero gets asked to do thing and needs accomplice to help do thing, and then they do the thing. But in the context of the Deadpool movies, that's obviously not what they're focusing on. That's just a vehicle to have weird jokes being made mostly at Deadpool's expense.
I agree. I cannot wait because I'm going to see that here within the hour, it looks like.
Nice.
Yeah. I did want to bring up D23 is happening right now.
Yes.
And I think we should probably wait a week on that just so we can get everything all organized because it's fucking wild right now.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot for sure.
Yeah. We haven't even touched about the big announcement.
I did see that apparently they're going ahead with the next Avatar.
Avatar 3, Fire and Ash, because we have no fucking idea what we're doing.
I legitimately, when I first saw that, I was just skimming past it on Twitter, and I could have sworn at first that it said Avatar 3 Fish and Water. And the fact that I didn't even pause to think, that's a dumb name, just kind of feels like my general opinion of where that series is at right now.
Dude, it's pissing me off that we had Way of Water and now Fire and Ash, as if this dude's fucking already stepping on Atla's like thing after The Last Airbender, you know?
Yeah.
This dude is not original. I'm so sorry.
No.
Try again. Like, In the Ashes is a little bit more subtle and more competent. Yeah.
I do think it's very funny. Skimming through some of the D23 headlines right here is a bunch about the park news itself.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never really thought about the Disney parks in like the last 10 years until there was a particular video that went out on YouTube of somebody giving their experience of having done one of the like super unique Star Wars experiences on like the fake Star Wars cruise ship thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just how shitty it was. So now that's turned into like just my general perspective of like if I see like Disney Villains Park, it's just like, oh, how are they going to cut corners to make this work?
Well, first of all, they're going to only use like 3 villains.
Yes.
And they're the 3 you're thinking of, the ones that make costumes easily.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a necessity, right? Because you're going to have you're going to need multiple people to be able to portray that same character day by day.
Yes. Do we have anything else for the show?
I do have one thing that I want to mention. Google is in the news this week.
Oh, no.
No, we're not going to go over that one because it's just not really news. But the actual thing that Google is in the news for is that they have been sued over an actual antitrust case by the Department of Justice.
Oh, yeah, the one that inspired Elon to go on his current tirade.
Kind of. But Google is being sued over an antitrust case related to their search division, claiming that Google coordinated with other search and browser companies to put Google search ahead of its competitors. And it makes a fairly compelling argument, honestly. Apparently, 80% of Firefox's annual revenue has been coming from a licensing exclusivity agreement that they have with Google.
What?
Yeah. And as part of this, that's going away, in theory. And it raises a pretty fair question of what's going to happen to Firefox if that's where their revenue comes from.
You know, I've always wondered like how Firefox is staying afloat in such a competitive market when they're very obviously not like in the mainstream.
Yep.
But that makes so much sense.
They're being paid by Google to not put someone else's search engine in its place. Or more than that, not just that, they're paid by Google to put Google search engine front and center as the first thing that you see when you try to use Firefox. So, yeah. We'll have to see how that turns out. Google, obviously, has a shitload of money. And I'm sure they'll be fighting this to the greatest amount extent that they can. But the ruling that was given down is a pretty stark result from the typical expectations that we have of these big tech companies skating by outside of consequence.
Mm.
But that's all I've got.
Fair, fair. In that case, I'm Nifus Ryan, and Robert Downey Jr. is coming back. What the fuck?
I'm Chiral, and I don't see how this possibly works at all.
This has been the
it's gonna be bad.
Can we just touch that real quick? Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom?
Yeah.
Interesting casting. Interesting concept. What the fuck are they smoking?
Yeah.
I don't know.